I'm suggesting the organization, I'm not suggesting, I'm saying the organization is as corrupt as the day is long, and it needs to be disbanded and rebuilt. Whatever objectives the FBI currently is engaged in can be farmed out to other organizations. I'm not even saying that they don't do wonderful things here in the United States of America and around the globe. I am saying that until you deal with that, you are not going to deal with the deep state. And hell, I seriously doubt that we have an ability to win elections. What with the FBI putting their thumb on the scale, both in 2016 and 2020. In both of those election cycles for President of the United States of America, a department of the executive branch of government affected the outcome of those elections, and it is beyond dispute. Yet here's Christopher Wray yesterday explaining to us that our organization is beyond reproach. Garbage. Garbage. Here's all you need to know. I mean, I could spend 3 hours detailing all of it, and have. The FBI knew in 2019 that the laptop was real. That's it. That's it. And they knew what was on it. That's it. Now, this is not new. But if you wonder why liberals absolutely hate Donald Trump with every fiber of their being, it is not because they actually believe that he's a racist or a chauvinist or a thisist or a thatist. They have plenty of those on their side, too. It is that he began the process of exposing all of this that had tilted the scales for Democrats for some time. Democrats mastered the art of using the blunt force of the FBI to their own advantage, having the ability to slow walk certain aspects of what the FBI does and fast track other aspects of what the FBI does, depending on the political nature of what they were dealing with. And they did it all the time, and they do it all the time. And now, finally, some of this is being exposed. And it's about time that we stop this Pollyanna.
Well, many people in the organization are wonderful folks, and we hate it for all of the field representatives. And we feel like we can do some restructuring. Why do I sound like Kermit the Frog right now? I don't know.
Because it's a Muppet show. That's why. An absolute Muppet show. And by the way, while I think about it, that's a pretty good Kermit the Frog if you don't, if I do say so myself. So we could begin there, and we probably will. I've got the FDA approving this birth control drug for over-the-counter sale that's been available for a long time with prescription with no age restrictions. I was talking to, and by the way, thank you so much to the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition for inviting me out. I was out. Jill Savage of The Blaze was out. We, too, talked to a group of people over at the Williamson County Public Library. And it was just wonderful to see all of you. And if you're listening right now and I got a chance to meet you last night, God bless you. Thank you for stopping by. And thank you for listening to the show. Good people. We were discussing the concepts of faith and freedom as it applies to government and government bureaucracy. And I made the point, and I fully am engaged on this, and I believe it. Not that every Democrat believes this. There are a lot of useful idiots in the Democrat Party that just fall in line and do what they're told. John said he thought it was Miss Piggy. Come on, man. Come on.
Hello, Kermit the Frog.
I could really do it. I mean, I wasn't even trying. I could do it, John. If you want me to do it, I'll do it. Somebody call up 615-737-9986. Offer me a solid Gonzo or Fozzie the Bear, and I'll engage as Kermit. Anyway. And then Mark Levin will come in and tell me to get back on the point. Get back on the point, you dope! If you're wondering why the FDA allowed no age restrictions on the birth control deal, I have a thought for you about how government fully takes control of your kids. In order for government to become the deity that we bow before, they have to take over the instruction of your children. Every modern totalitarian state has done so. Without gunplay, in most cases. Easy examples, modern examples. Cuba, Venezuela, Germany during the reign of Adolf Hitler. They take over as a state how the children are dealt with. They overtake the parental ability to say yes or no. So when a political leftist tells you that it's a matter of life and death, and I say it this way intentionally, and I know it's shocking to some of you, but I'm going to do it anyway. When a political leftist tells you that it's an absolute necessity that we cut the penis off of a 13-year-old boy, they're not doing so because they believe it. They're doing so to take away the power and control that parents have over the rearing of their children. Similarly, they do not believe that a parent has any say whatsoever as to whether or not their children are sexually active at the age of 13. So obviously, the parent can't have knowledge of a child going to a drugstore and buying birth control over the counter. Now, equally obvious, no one wants the 13-year-old to get pregnant. That's going to be bad for the 13-year-old. It's going to be bad for their lives. And I mean, obviously, we want to preclude that from precluding the sexual activity to begin with, but a lot of times the parents don't know about it. This would be an inflection point to get the parents more involved. The government, the state, doesn't want the parents involved. They want less parent involvement, not more. They want to supersede the rights of the parent in order to accomplish the goals of the state. And they do so under the umbrella of, oh, we're just trying to save the children. This has been going on for decades. We're just trying to save the children, love the children, protect the children, hold the children, cherish the children. And as I'm well on record, toward that end, based on what I know about what your objectives are, I say screw that. Because it's not really about the kids. At one point, we've had discussions in the past in my career regarding this mindset. Well, you can't, we are told, put a price tag on the life of a child. You can't. You better. In terms of government involvement. Well, we're going to try to, COVID was also a good example of how government tries to do this. Well, we're going to spend all the money to protect all the people. And they spend all the money and it doesn't work. They are trying to, as 6447 just pointed out on the super text line, they're not trying to save our children. They're trying to shape our children into good subjects. You see, in order to take over centralized forms of government and create a totalitarian or socialistic state, you have to own the children and turn them into subjects. Can't have citizens. Citizens talk too much. Citizens think too much. Subjects do what they're told. Ray Epps is back in the news. Maybe we'll get to the bottom of who Ray Epps is. This is actually kind of interesting. On one hand, Ray Epps' lawyer says he's about to be charged for the January 6th insurrection stuff. And on the other hand, Ray Epps is suing Fox News for defaming him for saying that he should. I want to go through this. Bell, you tell me if this makes sense. So Ray Epps, they're saying we're about to get charged with our role in January 6th. And simultaneous to that, Ray Epps and his attorneys are suing Fox News for saying that Ray Epps should be charged for his role in January 6th. Makes sense to me. You know?
Well, yeah, especially when you're still trying to deflect.
Well, I'd like to know. I'd like to know as much as I can about Ray Epps. And oh, by the way, why would we expect, speaking of January 6th, you're dealing with a federal bureaucracy that can't manage to find the individual that planted pipe bombs outside of the DNC. My estimation would be it's because they don't want to. But you're dealing with a government that can't find that person. They have surveillance video of the person. They know the person's approximate height and weight and where they were on the night in question.
Dude, it's not like trying to find out who leaves coke in the White House.
You know?
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry.
They can't do that either. And that is the subject number one of the show. In a moment, Cocaine Joe has shut down the White House investigation into who left cocaine in the White House. I've long said the two things that we have going for us in the United States of America, for those of us who love freedom, liberty, and believe in the Constitution of the United States, for those of us who believe in this country and how it was founded, for those of us who believe in personal and individual liberty, we have two things going for us. One, they always overplay their hand. Two, they think you're stupid. And this morning, I could not help but thinking about number two. They think you're stupid. As they said, we tried our best. It's been a couple of weeks. How long has this story been going on? I'm going to figure this out because, they gave up, man. They spent 5 years trying to find collusion between Donald Trump and Russia. Never did. But you know what? They've just decided that they just want to give up. It's a mystery. It's a mystery. We can't imagine who brought cocaine into the White House. I'll give you the details coming up in just a moment. It's 12:23, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to talk to you for a moment. We just passed Independence Day, and it's a time that we think about those that fight for our freedoms and ensure that we remain free. And I'm talking about the men and women of the United States military. At the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project, they think about these wonderful veterans and heroes every single day, and I hope that you do as well. Charlie is gone, but his spirit lives on with David Corlew and the other members of the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project, and their fight to reintegrate veterans from service to civilian life in the best way possible. So many of the wounds that we see in our veterans that have come home are not visible. These are wounds of the mind or wounds similar to PTSD, and those need to be helped. Obviously, the visible wounds as well. Friends, I want you to join the mission to help these veterans and help these heroes. We have the annual event coming up on September 13th, and I'm excited about it, and we'll tell you more about that as the time goes by and we get closer to the 13th. But for the time being, please go over to the CharlieDanielsJourneyHomeProject.org and give as you can. There's a donation button right there on the top of the screen. They give to those veterans and those veteran projects that are worthwhile, that maximize your dollar. I can promise you that. The Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project. Give today. It is 12:28. Have you heard the latest word salad from Kamala Harris? If there's any wonder,
I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Sorry, ma'am.
I'm speaking.
I apologize.
Okay.
That's on me. I apologize, ma'am. It is. It's good, and I'll play it for you coming up. It's about artificial intelligence, and she's got no excuse. I mean, we often say it that Joe Biden. Joe Biden's always been a pompous liar, but at one point, at least, he had a certain level of debating skill. I don't know that he was ever that smart of a person because he felt the need to steal other people's things, plagiarize other people's ideas and words, which he got caught in 1988, and he got booted off the Democrat ticket at that time. And, everyone knows that Joe's been stealing all of his life in order to further his own political career, power and control, and money. And now we know that he's a shakedown artist as well. But he was at least lucid enough that he could communicate a point on Meet the Press or whatever talking head show he chose to go on one day to the next. Kamala Harris is not that intelligent. And she speaks, and I believe it's by necessity, as if she's talking to fourth graders. And I think because she thinks like a fourth grader is why she does this. So I'll play the I'll play the clip for you. It's pretty good. I mean, it's not the best. I wouldn't suggest it's the best, but it's pretty good. Real quick, Kevin wants to talk about cocaine in the White House. Hey, Kevin, how are you? Hey, Kevin. Kev. Cavino. The Kev Meister. The Kev Man. The Kevinator. Kevin the Kev Tones. 3 Kevs and the first 2 don't count.
Kevlar.
Kevlar. That's good. I like that. Nothing. Kev going once. Kev going twice. Kev sold to the highest bidder, the man in the black hat. We'll be back in a moment at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. I understand that there are a lot of different companies that you could go to try to get your pain relieved. But why not go to the company that originated certain therapies right here in Middle Tennessee? And let's talk about that for a moment. Dr. Gill started his office well over 3 decades ago, and he assembled a team of chiropractors, people like Dr. Wendy, Dr. Dominic, Dr. V, and the rest. They have over 100 years collective experience in their office. That's a lot of experience working on you to help alleviate your pain, whether it's in your back, your neck, in any joints, your knees even. They've got red light therapy. They've got class 5 laser therapy. They obviously originated spinal decompression in Middle Tennessee, and they are the best at what they do. And for less than $50, you walk through their doors. They're going to give you a comprehensive diagnosis and examination. They're going to give you x-rays. They're going to look over those x-rays with you sitting right there, and they're going to come up with a plan of action, a plan for success. Call today and schedule an appointment. Mention my name, 615-882-4838, 882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. 1235, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Steve Abramowitz will be here in the 1 o'clock hour. He's with the Mill Creek View podcast. They're down in Franklin. He's going to give us the latest on the illegal alien child rapist that has been in the midst of Franklin for the last 20 years. It's a frightening story, and we want to alert you to the latest on that story. We'll do so in just a couple of minutes. A couple of other things to talk to Steve about, and we'll do that in the 1 o'clock hour. In the 2 o'clock hour, Representative Scott Sapicki will stop by, give us the latest on the special session and what, if anything, can the state do about child molestation, child safety and security in the midst of the Franklin story. That's coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. Do we have the television side back up and running? YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch? No? Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the stream's up. I thought you were talking about the TV and the...
Oh, no. That's a different nut to crack.
Yeah, but yeah, everybody's looking at you.
So what happens if I want to, like, jip a press conference?
SOL.
Huh. GIP SOL?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a VIP.
Mm-hmm.
So the TV's just going to be MIA?
Mm-hmm.
We need to get one ASAP.
Yep.
That's BS.
That was... I'm sorry. That's one of the finest radio moments I've ever heard in my life.
615. I'm just completely stealing from Good Morning Vietnam, but okay. 615-737-9986 if you'd like to be a part of the show. If you have any thoughts on who, I mean, I don't know that you would, but who in the world could the cocaine have belonged to? So,
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know whether to laugh or cry because I'll be honest, unless we collectively rise up and demand more, I don't know what to tell you. The Biden administration has made a determination that they can do whatever they want to do, and you'll just shut up and take it. And the mainstream media will act in a complicit manner and won't say anything about it. They understand that the best friend they have going for them are the folks over at CNN, hashtag never CNN. What a garbage network full of garbage people spewing out garbage. MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS. The Washington Post, New York Times, et al. Associated Press. They have no interest in covering this story. They have an interest in covering up this story. And let me explain to you the difference in coverage. I mean, I could easily talk about, well, what if this were Donald Trump and yada, yada, yada? What if it was any Republican? Here's what they do. A Republican does a weird thing or something odd happens, and the mainstream networks can't get any traction. And they will go around to every Republican that they can find willing to go on camera. And they will demand that those Republicans denounce. They did it all through the Trump administration. I'm elephantine. I remember like it was yesterday. They demand you denounce. So here's how it goes. And I know these people. I know what they do. Let's use CNN as an example. CNN really wants to hammer. Let's say that they found cocaine in the Trump White House. And CNN is all over it. Who knew and where do they know? And it's the most surveilled house in the world. And there's surveillance cameras, and there's eavesdropping, and there's checkpoints, and there's this checkpoint and that checkpoint, and this drug dog and that drug dog. And they know who brought it. We're going to get to the bottom of it. And while that investigation's going on, they'll call up every Republican that they know, and they'll say, why don't you come on and talk about the national budget, or why don't you come on and talk about the war in Ukraine, or we need you to come on and talk about this, that, or the other thing. And they get them on, and then suddenly the pivot happens. And what do you know about the cocaine in the White House? Should the Congress investigate cocaine at the White House? We understand that there was cocaine at the White House. Do you believe the president knew anything about cocaine at the White House? Why are you not calling for a congressional investigation into cocaine at the White House? Do you denounce it, sir? Where are the Democrats? Where is the media challenging the Democrats? I don't want the mainstream media to act this way, but if they're going to, I would at least expect a little intellectual honesty. And they don't have it, and they don't get called on it. All throughout the Trump administration, Donald Trump would say something or Donald Trump would tweet something. You know, like there are rapists coming. There are rapists coming across the southern border. Remember when Donald Trump said that? He said that we have an open, porous border to our south, and we must do something about it. Let's look at that, because I think that has some particular local application right now down in Franklin. So Donald Trump said to the American people as a candidate for president, our southern border is a problem. Not only do we not know who is coming into this country, we're getting some of the worst coming into this country. We're getting all of these bad guys coming into the country. We're getting the rapists. We're getting the murderers. You know, some of them are good people, but we're getting the bad people too. And they focus on the rapist part. And then they get Republicans on the line with them. Hey, would you do me a favor? Would you tell Larry to hold on so you can answer line 3? It'll make my heart better. It'll make my heart feel better. So Donald Trump, sorry, I got off track there. Donald Trump says something about the bad people coming across the southern border. And he says some of them are rapists. Some of them are very bad people. Oh, Donald Trump's a xenophobe. And then before you know it, CNN and NBC, ABC, CBS, they're calling every Republican they know, and they demand that these Republicans denounce. You must denounce, or do you denounce what the president said? And the Republican in question says, well, look, in context, you have to understand, he wasn't talking about everybody. He was talking about some of these people, and we got MS-13, and we got some, do you denounce it, sir? Do you denounce it or not? Yeah, I denounce it. In the meantime, Donald Trump was right. We had one of them that was here in our community for 20 years raping children who illegally came into this country across the southern border. Not the same treatment with any of this. The White House is so porous that they found cocaine in it, and all of the excuses in the world will not change that. And if you expect me to believe that the Secret Service, how long has it been? Would you do me a favor, Bell? Look up when this story broke, the cocaine story in the White House. Now, once again, as Bell and I discussed the other day, I'm a libertarian, and I believe that what you put in your body is your own business. It's not about that. It's about the lack of media coverage, the lack of media scrutiny, the porous security at the White House, and the fact that they think we're boo-boo the fool.
July 2nd.
Less than 2 weeks. 11 days.
That was a pipe bomb, though. They would have found out who planted it.
11 days later. They say, the emoji, the shrug guy emoji? If you're watching on TV, he's going, ah? That's the Secret Service. When the security of the President of the United States is at stake, and if they were taking this seriously, and if it wasn't some sort of inside job or whatever, I predict to you they know very well whose drugs it was. I'm not saying it was Hunter Biden's, but I think they know. They're just not going to tell you because they don't believe in a regime that believes in ruling its subjects. They do not believe that you deserve to know. Lena, I'm going to need you to keep up. I know that's Lena just wrote in on the super text line. They just closed the investigation into the cocaine. That's what we're talking about. The closure after 11 days of intensive investigation. I am certain that it was. Would you not believe that I've been to the White, I'm not pulling the, whatever card. I had the opportunity at one point during the Trump administration. I was friends with a man by the name of Cliff Sims, who started a couple of media organizations, online media conglomerates in the state of Alabama, and he was asked to be a part of the Trump digital team. And he was. He worked in the White House for a number of years. And we got a chance to tour the West Wing of the White House, the working wing of the White House. And it is top-level security. They take your phone. You can't take pictures. And we went on a tour in the overnight hours. It was about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. We had to go through one level of security to get on the grounds. We had to go through another level of security involving drug dogs and bomb dogs. We then had to go through another metal detector before we actually got into the facility. We were wanted when we were in the facility, and you had to put all of your stuff in a locker. Now, they're claiming this cocaine was found in a locker, and they don't know who it was. But I remember security cameras at those locker checkpoints. The mainstream media spent almost 4 years attempting to convince you that Donald Trump was an agent of the Russians. And the federal government worked tirelessly to try to connect those dots through the FBI, even though they knew it wasn't so. And after 11 days, they just threw up, oh, well, I guess we'll never know. What are you going to do, guys? We've narrowed it down to 500 people. Do you understand the intensive investigation that went on after January 6th? The lives. I knew a guy, and you know what? This is kind of starting to piss me off. I knew a guy in Alabama who lived outside of, he lived in Winfield, Alabama. Regular caller to my radio show. The man's name was Daryl Hubbard, but everybody knew him as Big Hub. Big Hub is dead. And I would suggest to you that part of the reason that Big Hub died, part of the reason that Big Hub had a massive heart attack and passed away was because of the almost terroristic nature that the FBI engaged in when questioning him repeatedly about his participation, or in this case, lack thereof, on January 6th. And it was because he was photographed outside of the Capitol, never went in. But they repeatedly went back down there and sat him down and for hours questioned Big Hub on who he worked with and his associations and who he knew was around him. They still have not announced a closure of that investigation, even though it is obvious that many people that were on the property never went inside of the building, and many people that went inside the building did so after they thought they were being allowed to be inside of the building because the Capitol Police chose to stand it down. Lives destroyed. Yet, cocaine in the White House, major security breach. Whatever. Cecil is in Smyrna. Hey, Cecil, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, man? With them closing the investigation, I think it shows an admission of guilt because, number one, when you want to go ahead and proceed with the investigation to narrow down any safety violations or something, that can harm the White House, when you want to follow that through?
You would think, Cecil. You would think that you would want to follow that through, but apparently the Secret Service just, shrugged their shoulders and said, I guess we'll never know.
And another thing, too, this new anchor y'all got coming on that I got the job out of Phoenix, I'm really looking forward to hearing from him because he said something right about, there's a big difference between Phoenix and Nashville. When I got divorced, my kids went to Phoenix. When they graduated, they said they're coming back to the South, man, because, people just out west they're just like off their rocker. It's just like anything goes, man. These homeless people and migrants are just taking over, man. I thank God for living in Tennessee, man. We got fiscally responsible, representatives and everything, man. And, I tell you, my boy knows what bathroom to go to, and the girl knows too.
I love that. Well, Cecil, you welcome those kids back home soon. And I love being in Tennessee as well. I mean, the South is where I was born, in Georgia, and the South is where I will die. Now, Chris Hand, who is a great guy, and he's coming up Monday from 9 until noon. I don't know that I know where Chris was born, but I know he knows those places better than me. I've visited. He's lived there. And much like Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News, he understands how tragic those places truly have become. And he was telling me the other day, we were talking about his time in Phoenix, and he was like, man, I can't raise my kids in Phoenix. I got a 4-year-old. I'm not going to raise my kids worried about them on a day-to-day basis as to what they're exposed to and what they're experiencing, and worried about all of the crime and just the lack of attention to it. We've got our problems in Nashville. We do. But they pale in comparison to some other communities. Good call, Cecil. Thanks for making it. Tom, we'll get to you in a moment. It's 1250 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You want to get high?
You know, folks, we were talking about woke media just a moment ago. We were talking about the fact that they tip the scales, they put their thumb on the scales of what is right and what is wrong and create a two-tier system. And sadly, we see this in so many organizations as well. Big mobile companies do it, folks. They give to woke propagandist causes, and frankly, they support a lot of these media organizations that are doing it the wrong way. I mean, as a matter of fact, I just watched, and I'm not naming names, but I just watched an organization, well, you know, CNN, and an advertisement from a big woke mobile phone company. Well, if you want to change the dynamic, if you want to tip the scale in the other direction, you've got to put your money where your mouth is. And I want you to call Patriot Mobile today. They're America's only Christian conservative wireless network. You're going to keep your phone. You're going to keep your phone number. But you're going to call and you're going to switch to Patriot Mobile. Now, they utilize nationwide coverage on all three major networks. But at the same time, they utilize their position in the market and in the industry not to support these woke companies. They spend your money the right way, and they are cheaper as a result of not spending their money on some of this woke propaganda. They are U.S.-based. They are customer service friendly. They make switching so easy. I want you to get free activation right now when you offer them the offer code Murphy, M-U-R-P-H-Y. Go to patriotmobile.com/Murphy. That's patriotmobile.com/Murphy or 878-PATRIOT. 878-PATRIOT. Make the switch. Put your money where your mouth is with Patriot Mobile.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement. Put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and I say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return is going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
We've got some breaking news and update. It's 12:58, Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Wendy wants to know if Paul Winkler is the son of Henry Winkler. You know, I don't think that's true, but
Definitively.
He is?
Absolutely.
Oh. Well, I mean, he's cool like the Fonz.
Absolutely.
I heard that Henry Winkler is one of the nicest human beings on the planet. I've heard that. Hey, here's a not-so-nice human being update. At least one of the individuals responsible for the dissemination of the KKK flyers in Columbia and the surrounding areas of Murray County has been arrested at his place of business. The authorities are saying that they are planning to charge these individuals with a hate crime. I want to know what you think about that coming up in a minute. Because I'm not so sure that's not, I mean, well, we'll talk about it. Stand by. Supertalk 99.7 WTN.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Jobless claims dropping again last week, with 12,000 fewer Americans filing for first-time unemployment than the week before. Signs the labor market remains robust in the face of high interest rates. And a day after a better-than-expected report on consumer prices, wholesale or producer prices seeing the smallest monthly increase since August of 2020. ABC's Justin Finch has White House reaction.
The White House attributing that growth to Bidenomics, its effort to expand the economy through job creation, lowering costs, and U.S. investment. The Fed now weeks away from its July interest rate meeting. Many expect rate hikes will pick up again.
The FTC is scrutinizing another major AI tech firm.
OpenAI is the artificial intelligence firm behind programs like ChatGPT, and it's also the latest big tech company to face an investigation from the FTC. A document obtained by the Washington Post finds the agency is looking into how many complaints OpenAI's received about its programs making false, misleading, disparaging, or harmful claims about people. The document indicates AI-generated content could run afoul of consumer protection laws. The FTC declined to comment. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
Dangerous heat alerts stretching coast to coast. Arizona calls for FEMA to issue a disaster declaration after 2 straight weeks of triple-digit temperatures.
In Maricopa County, as of July 11th, 12 people have died this year due to heat, with 55 more under investigation. Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego has been calling for FEMA to respond to heat emergencies just like they do for a hurricane or tornado.
That's why I called on our federal partners to amend FEMA's list of declared disasters to include extreme heat.
Phoenix is on track to break its all-time record for back-to-back days above 110 degrees.
ABC's Alex Stone reporting. You're listening to ABC News.
Tennessee Men's Clinic is here for you, gentlemen, when you need them, and I think you might need them even though you don't know it. Let's discuss. So you're in your mid-40s or maybe your mid-50s, and you're just feeling sluggish. You don't have the energy that you used to have. Do you know why? I mean, don't just chalk it up to middle age. It could be something that can be corrected. And men of a certain age lose some of their T. They lose some of their vim and vitality, and sometimes that manifests itself with not wanting to do yard work. Sometimes it manifests itself with just needing to take afternoon naps. Whatever it might be, why not allow the crew at Tennessee Men's Clinic to talk with you, to sit you down? You scheduled an appointment. They'll bring you in. They'll do a little blood work, and they'll make sure that everything is where it should be. And if it's not, they have a recipe for success to get you back to life, back to vitality. And yes, this can affect bedroom activity, men, and there's no shame in that. Half of men in the United States of America are going to have some impact in that regard at some point in their lives. Let's not let it fester, and let's not let it be you. Let's get to the Tennessee Men's Clinic. The telephone number is 615-208-9090, 208-9090, or find out where their locations are, 2 to serve, one in Midtown Nashville, the other in Franklin, by going to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Tennessee Men's Clinic. Hey, just as I'm looking at him right there, Rhett Bryan. You know, Rhett Bryan of the Titans Radio Network. By the way, this is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm pleased you've joined us. It's 105. Lots to do. Man, there's a lot going on. You know, the United States has... Hey, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Joe Biden... Let me try to pull this clip real quick. I'm all over the place. I am like a box of frogs right now. And I'm a box of frogs right now. I'm hopping all over the place. So Joe Biden, before he left to come back to the United States of America, announced that Russia had already lost the war in Ukraine. Did you hear that? That's what he said. I have the clip in here somewhere. Russia has already lost the war in Ukraine. And then he stumbled a little bit going up Air Force One after he said it. But now I'm looking on my television screen, one of our monitors here in our palatial studios, right off of Music Row, and it says that the United States of America is sending cluster munitions, and they have arrived in Ukraine. But wait a minute. I thought that Joe Biden told us that Russia had already lost the war in Ukraine. Well, isn't that odd? So Biden takes two pre-selected questions from a pre-selected list of reporters on his so-called press conference in Finland. He attempts to read from his prepared remarks. Joe Biden eventually gets around to saying that Russia has already lost the war in Ukraine, and now we're sending more bombs to Ukraine. That doesn't make any sense. But back to the subject at hand, I just saw Rhett Bryan. And for those of you who listen all day long, I appreciate you all dayers. Thank you so much for being here on the Matt Murphy portion of the broadcast day. It starts with Dan Mandis in the morning, Nashville's Morning News. We just announced our brand new 9 to noon host. That would be Chris Hand. He's going to be a great addition to the team. Matt Murphy here from noon until 3, and the illustrious, the one and only Brian Wilson from 3 until 7 o'clock. That is a part of 14 hours of live and local conversation, information-fueled and opinion-driven. I'm not dismissing Mark Levin or Ben Shapiro or anyone else for that matter. But if you listen to Nashville's Morning News, you know that there's been a lot of smack talk by Mandis about the pickleball challenge that's coming up. No, we don't have – I need to find out from someone, and you can super text me or give us a call if you know of a – I think there's several pickleball places in Mount Juliet where we could do this, and obviously that's both of our home bases. I'm south, he's north. I need to know if there's a pickleball coach out there that can give me some pointers. You know, I don't want to go into this thing half-cocked. And apparently Mandis has some sort of private professional tutorial going on a regular basis with a shirtless fireman. He's got the shirtless fireman helping him with his pickle ball efforts. So I noticed what we're going to do, and Rhett Bryan has agreed to it. Rhett Bryan of the Titans Radio Network, you hear him often on our sister station, 104.5 The Zone. Rhett has agreed to call the game. So he is going to provide, we just need a color commentator to go along with Rhett. Maybe Coach Mack will do color commentary. Holy shnikes, would that not be cool? Hell, Mike Keith might even get involved. One way or the other, this thing is happening. I think we've got a big announcement coming up by July 26th when you get out to J Street Korean Bar and Grill and meet all of us in Hendersonville. And some have said that there have been some issues with signing up with tickets. We're working on that. If you've had an issue on your cell phone trying to get tickets from 997WTN.com, please be patient with us. I've had a couple of folks tell me they've had trouble, although I've had many people tell me that they've already gotten tickets. So I don't know what the disparity is there, but we're working on it. We're working on it. So I think we'll have a pickleball update certainly by the time we break bread together in less than 2 weeks in Hendersonville at the J Street Korean Grill and Bar. Come on out and see us and say hello. Meet Chris Hand and the rest of the crew with Super Talk 99.7 WTN. But I do have a commitment. Rhett Bryan said he'd call the game. I've not asked Mike Keith. Maybe he's too busy. I don't know. I don't know what Mike Keith is doing. But perhaps Coach Mack would offer some color commentary. We could make a big charity deal out of this thing. All right, an update on the individuals out of Murray County that I well established yesterday. This is disgusting behavior. It is disgusting to consider that some people would be so ignorant or dumb and those are two different things, so gross, so inferior. Anyone that hangs onto this nonsensical racist belief that they are, by a condition of their birth, inherently superior to anyone else, it's just nonsense. It is a lack of belief in oneself. You're either lazy or you are mentally inferior to believe that because you are white, you're better than black people. Or because you are black, you're better than white people. Whatever the racism might be, racism is gross. It manifests itself as evil. And it is a part of what I consider to be an inferiority complex. So no rational person would justify the behavior that we talked about yesterday in Murray County with the dissemination of these flyers. At the same time, I'm concerned that authorities in Murray County and in Columbia are saying that they are going to charge these individuals with a hate crime over their behavior. A hate crime? Now, is it gross? Yes. Do you want to charge them with something? I suppose you do. You could charge them maybe with harassment, maybe with littering, but apparently that's not enough. And I'm pulling back up the flyer itself because I want to make clear to you that I do not justify the behavior. At the same time, I worry about a society that would suggest that this in and of itself is a hate crime. Because what are they going to use this very... I mean, it's not a concrete set of determined factors that would constitute a hate crime. It's really a hate crime in the eye of the beholder. Now, no one's saying it's right. No one's saying it's good. No one's saying you want it in your community. But you charge these individuals with a hate crime. I mean, they're scumbags. There's no question they're scumbags. But if you arm authorities with the ability to call speech a hate crime, would they not come after us next? When I say that, for example, when I tell you that I'm not going to play by the leftist rules, and just because they tell me that that men can have children, okay, this is a good example. The political left and many snapper heads who consider themselves Democrats believe that men can have babies. And you ask them, can men have babies? Well, yes. Oh, yes, men can have babies. Well, how is that so? Well, if you have the biological parts in order to have babies and you consider yourself a man, then you can have baby. Well, that's a woman having a baby. That's a woman having a baby who wants to be a man, but she's still a woman. What I just said right there could easily, based on these loosey-goosey definitions, easily be considered a hate crime. Now, Matt wants to know, did they catch the KKK guys? My prediction, it was staged by Democrats to foment more racial division. I have that prediction as well, Matt. I'm going to hold off on any speculation until we figure out who these knuckleheads were. They looked young and dumb. They looked like a couple of morons. And if the shot that I was sent recently, it looks like they have apprehended one of these individuals. This is from an alert listener that sent me this shot, claiming that the one member of the stupid brigade down there in Columbia had been arrested. I have not confirmed that. Let me repeat, I have not confirmed that. And I'm looking for some confirmation online right now. But I was sent by one of our super texters a screenshot of what appears to be an arrest in progress outside of a place of business in Columbia or in Murray County. So it looks like one of them has been arrested. At least one of them has been arrested. Scott says, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a warning to all but white heterosexual people? No, I mean, well, they didn't really. I can read you the flyer. Nobody's justifying the flyer, but any sort of threat. If I offer you a warning that, for example, if I go to a Primitive Baptist church and the pastor in the Primitive Baptist church, Scott, and I'm not coming after you, I'm just answering your question on the super text line. If the pastor of the Primitive Baptist church says, all of you fornicators be warned, all of you homosexuals be warned that you risk burning in the fiery pit of hell. Okay? Is that a hate crime? I warned you. I didn't say I was going to do anything to you. On this flyer, nobody said anybody was going to do anything to anybody on the flyer. But they did say be warned. So I get that. Once again, no one justifies the language. No one justifies the thought. No one justifies the actions. But I don't know that this constitutes a hate crime, friends. If it does, be warned, because if you have a position or an opinion contrary to the prevailing mood of the community, if one little delicate snowflake comes out and says that you've threatened them, that they feel somehow triggered by your words or your actions, well, then you could be next. You could be next. Both things can be true. We can be disgusted by the behavior and want to, in some form or fashion, punish it. And I said yesterday, an appropriate punishment, you charge them with the things that you can charge them with. If you feel like you can make harassment stick, make harassment stick. Certainly you can make some form of littering charge stick and make the punishment that these two individuals have to go to the churches that they offended, apologize to the church members, the congregation of those churches, and act as a cleanup crew for a series of weeks or months to clean up the property, to clean up the sanctuary, and to have some good, positive discussion with the members of those African-American churches. It's a hell of a lot harder to act like an a-hole when you're looking somebody in the eye. Promise you that. 615-737-9986. Larry is in Clarksville with a thought on all of this. Hey, Larry, how are you?
Hey, brother Matt. And you know, I meant to try to get this in yesterday, but you know, my mind is like an open box of frogs. Okay, and then you cover so much. You know, I don't know what they can charge these people with. I mean, I really don't. And I don't, I mean, I sure as heck don't agree with it. And then as a side note, when I get there on the 26th, I'm going to bend over and kiss Dan Mandis on the top of his head and rub it. And then I'm going to hug you too, dude.
Okay. Which do you?
I'm just letting you know.
Well, I mean, I'll take a hug from you, Larry. If I can't get one from Hank, I'll take one from you. Hank's the GOAT, by the way.
Well, no, yeah. Listen, you don't want a hug from Hank.
No, you look. You sent me a picture. I saw what Hank is packing back there. Talk about. I mean, that's no pickleball.
No, it ain't. And no, it ain't. But. No, brother,
now I fully understand why you had to give Hank to someone else and let him go out to pasture.
Yes, I did. And now he has a fenced-in 6 acres. He gets to, and now he's got 2 new girlfriends on the way.
Oh, well, isn't that sweet?
Hank is living the life, brother.
I bet he is. That reminds me of some of these horses that go out to stud after they run 3 races and win them. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
When I come back, I want to be a thoroughbred racehorse. Thanks, Larry. I appreciate you. Hopefully, we'll get the issue. Larry was having an issue with getting those tickets, but he'll be there, and I encourage you to be there as well. Go to 99.7 WTN and sign up for those things.
And it is for the record. You don't want to hug Mandis. That just is going to be awkward.
He said he was going to hug me.
He said he was going to kiss Mandis on the head.
He said he was going to. No, what he said was, and I want to make clear we quote this correctly. He said he was going to bend over and kiss Mandis on the top of his bald head.
That's just going to weird Dan out.
I want to see it. And I hope I can convince Larry. I'm going to borrow some of my wife's lipstick, and I hope I can convince Larry to, get those lips nice and ruby red before he does it, so it leaves a nice little right there on the top of Mandis's head. And then we video it.
You'd weird him out so bad.
I mean, I think we could get a video of the most awkward moment in the history of moments.
Yes.
If we managed to make that happen. I mean, I think if I guaranteed you that would happen, would you go?
No. Very, very busy that night.
You know what? I don't respect your attitude, but I respect your honesty. 615-737-9986. Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to spend a moment talking about your health. I do this from time to time because I worry about you, and I want you to be safe and sound. Many listeners of the Matt Murphy Show have already taken my suggestion and gone to craftbodyscan.com to find out more about full-body CT scans. As a matter of fact, I think I can say that Jason, one of our loyal listeners and super texters, commented on his successful body scan and how much it meant to him. You could be next, and it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. Now, obviously, you need to know what you need to know inside of your body, and sadly, it is the case that when you experience symptoms, sometimes whatever issue's going on, whether it's cancer-related or any other type of issue, it's been going on for a while before you notice it. Well, with a CT scan, with a Craft Body Scan, they can find those issues long before you feel that anything's wrong. They begin with a private health consultation, as they did me, and then I went down to the scanning room, and it was like 5 to 8 minutes. It was no big deal. I laid down, listened to some music, and it was over before you know it. And obviously, they're not probing anything or whatnot. You're just laying there and allowing the CT scan to do the work. Results are reviewed by a top team of providers, and then they offer those results to you. Ideally, they find nothing, and you have peace of mind. You walk away with the knowledge of what's going on inside of your body. $149 for a couple for a heart and lung scan right now. Go to craftbodyscan.com. That's CRAFT, craftbodyscan.com, or call 615-436-1000, 436-1000. You know, I said yesterday, we were here, Brian Wilson from Watertown, Matt Murphy in studio, Dan Mandis in studio, announcing the hire of Chris Hand to serve as the 9 to noon host on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And I mentioned how wonderful it has been December to December, and then what's this month? It's like a year and a half, a little over a year and a half that I've been in Middle Tennessee, and how wonderful it's been to get to know all of you. And I so appreciate your graciousness and your hospitality. One thing that I noticed, and I mentioned it yesterday, that the radio station in and of itself, because of the extended radio family, is such a powerful force, not just in Middle Tennessee, but beyond. And it is a powerful force above and beyond anything that, I mean, I hope that I present just a little bit of contribution to all of that. I mean, that's what you hope, right, as a host. But I've noticed that this audience, and look, I've worked for a lot of great radio stations, particularly one that I helped create in Birmingham. But I have never experienced an audience that is more supportive and alert to the radio station that they listen to and protective of it. And rightly so. This is somewhat of a unicorn. A 100,000 blowtorch radio station like this, with the power and influence that it has had for so long, thanks to the greats of the industry that have been on these airwaves. And I do not in any way honor myself to suggest that I'm one of them, but, you know, one of these days maybe I'll last a length of time where you are. Consider me family.
You are.
Well, thank you, Bill. But y'all are also some of the funniest and smartest listeners on planet Earth. To wit, Keith writes in and says, you know, we were talking to Larry about some lipstick prior to smooching on Dan.
Lipstick on a goat.
He said, Keith's got the solution. He said, just when Larry gets there, buy him a Bud Light. He'll put the lipstick on himself.
That's just mean. I'll be nice to Larry.
Oh, Tommy writes in, with all your vacation, we only can you be in here. I'm going to read it as he wrote it. Tommy says, but with all your vacation, we only can you be in here a year. Here's the funny thing. I did take a week last week. I did take the days last week. But
that was legit vacation.
Yeah, that was vacation. But most of the time when I'm not here from noon to 3, I'm
in another day part.
I'm on from 3 to 7.
Yeah.
In most of those circumstances that have happened over the course of the year. And I know that confuses some folks, but I appreciate that. And well stated, Tommy. Todd said, you said unicorn. I don't know what that means. Larry says that it will take vodka to get him to put on any of that. All right, so we do have. I've got the
Zima count. Can we get a Zima?
You know what? I don't want to hear from you because you don't know this, but I love Zima. I've always loved Zima.
Why am I not surprised?
Because Zima is not a wine cooler. A wine cooler is a wine cooler. Zima was a malted citrus beverage, and it was delicious.
I'm kind of pitching to the left a little bit.
You shut your face. Zima was a wonderful product, and it was before its time. All these, look, I get my dander up when people go after Zima.
You're going to start wearing pastel, aren't you?
Look, all of these seltzers and all of these, hard ciders and all of that junk that you see on the alcohol aisle, Zima was the precursor to all of that. And Zima was not sweet like some of those wine coolers. People misremember Zima. Zima's delicious, and I am on record as saying that I would drink one right now if somebody brought one to me.
Strychnine was the precursor to arsenic.
Have you ever had a Zima?
Yes. It was nasty.
It was not nasty. Okay, I'm not going to make a matter of taste a matter of fact, but I will tell you that Zima's delicious. And I was singularly, remember when they brought it back? They brought it back a couple of years ago.
The scariest thing about all of this is I think you might you're telling me the truth.
No, I love Zima. Oh my God. Zima's not, everybody says Zima, it's a malted beverage. What do you, better than Bud Light?
That ain't saying much.
Well, I mean, true, but. I loved Zima when they came out with it. I thought it was great.
Well, you know what? Then you turned 15.
I never put Jolly Ranchers in the crap. That's garbage. But I would in college. I would, get a 6-pack of Zima and you take a sip and then you add a couple of shots of vodka in it. It makes it much better.
Good Lord. I give up.
Hey, all of you folks are like Zima. Y'all don't remember what Zima tasted like. You just don't. Zima was delicious. It was like alcoholic Sprite. Absolutely fabulous beverage. And I'll die on that hill. All right, here's what the flyer said, and you tell me. I'm interested. We're going to talk to Steve Abramowitz about this from Mill Creek View and the Mill Creek View podcast in just a second. There is and once again, it's all gross, it's all disgusting. The question is this a hate crime? And what do we mean by hate crime? Invisible Empire, the Old Glory, Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, and there's a symbol there. It says heritage, not hate. That's nonsense. It's all about hate. It's not about heritage. These are gross people. These are inferior people. You have been paid another social visit by the Old Glory Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. We have a dark history here, and because of you, a bright future. Be warned. Race traitors, mixed breeds, communists, homosexuals, and all other walks of godless degeneracy. The Klan is back again and here to stay, so you'd better make amends or stay away. Is that a hate crime? It's gross. It is to be dismissed. I don't think it's a hate crime. 132 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Friends, it's hot. I mean, you hear the forecast, and it's just 95, 96 degrees. I mean, we know that it's hot in the middle of summer in Tennessee, and you add that humidity, and whoo, it can be brutal. Well, it's hard to deal with it if your AC is not working as it should, but I know the guy. I know a guy that I trust in my home. I trust that he will do the job in your home with efficiency and for a low cost. It's Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. A small company, big service, and big results, however. If you're trying to make a decision whether to repair or replace, you need someone that's going to tell you truthful information. Sadly, it is just a fact that some HVAC, whether it's just out of an abundance of caution, or they don't want to deal with it, or they want to make more money, or they're on commission, they just go, replace, replace, replace. Well, you're on a budget, man, and you need to save as much as you can. And if you can get a couple of extra years out of that unit, you need to do so. Jeff Eddy is trustworthy as the day is long. Never charges you overtime. Will never charge you over $125 for a maintenance call, no matter how many residential units you might have. Jeff Eddy keeps that overhead low, and he passes the savings on to you. When it's time to replace, Diamond Contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an elite pro partner with Rheem. EfficientHVAC.net or call 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. For the better part of the afternoon, we'll hand off to the drive with Brian Wilson at 3 o'clock today. How about that? 137, 615-737-9986. Come on. I love the Zima hate. It feeds me. It really does. It feeds my dark, icky soul. For all of you Zima haters out there. That's more Zima for me. I wish it still existed. They brought it back for the summertime a couple of years ago. And
it doesn't exist anymore?
I don't think you can get it anymore.
I could have sworn I've seen some recently.
They had it in Walmart. And it was because I know this because I had not been to a Walmart in 5 years. I marked the time because I'm proud of it. Because I think the Walmart is kind of the evil empire. Not the Soviet Union, more like the evil empire in Star Wars. It's the dark side. Anyway, but Walmart brought it back as a part of its summer collection. And they had it like on its summer aisle, like as a light summer beverage. And I had listeners, I ended up with like 12 six-packs of it. Because people were seeing it and buying it for me.
Well, which
I loved.
If it hasn't been stated already, I mean, let me say I'm sorry for your loss.
Well, it hurt for a while. I got over it. You know, I did my best. I do my best to move on a day-to-day basis.
And like 3723 said, he loves Zima. That's the only thing he drank when he came out.
Mm-hmm. Your hate feeds me. My favorite was, I forget who said it. I can't find it now. Said, Zima, those bottles are ribbed for your pleasure. I bet Steve Abramowitz is regretting coming on this show right now. Steve Abramowitz is with the Mill Creek View podcast. You hear me talking about Mill Creek View all the time. If you've not gone over and checked Mill Creek View out, they got so many great, wonderful interviews with a variety of different people from around here and from parts unknown. And he joins us now to talk about some of the activities going on in Franklin and beyond. Steve, what's happening, man?
Matt, you know those bottles of Zima you bought, that wasn't actually Zima. That was old Bartles and James wine coolers that they couldn't get rid of, so they relabeled it for you.
Maybe so, but it was delicious, nonetheless.
You didn't notice the orange flavor made a difference? All right.
Yeah, I keep having people tell me, oh, I used to put Jolly Ranchers in Zima. And I was like, no, chicks did that. I'm a dude. I drank mine straight.
Well, there you go. You just nailed it. It wasn't for you, but you liked it anyway. And
well, and that's true. That is absolutely the case, that it was marketed toward women, but whatever. Steve, one quick aside question about something that I heard was going on in Franklin, and I'll leave it alone. I'm wondering if you know. Somebody told me that Gabrielle Hansen might be running for mayor.
We are forever tied at the hip with this story.
I know. We are.
It is. I believe it is official that now she is running for mayor, yes.
When is the mayoral election in Franklin?
October.
Okay, so it's right around the corner. So she's going for it. Well,
you're going to come down and picket for her and canvass for her?
I would. You know what? I would offer her an opportunity to come on the show and present her platform. I don't know that she would take it. Maybe she'll come back on with you, though, on the Mill Creek View podcast.
The invitation has been extended. I'll keep you posted.
Well, do that. What do you, this is just, it's an awful story to contemplate, Steve. I know that you want to believe that in your community, whatever your community is, I mean, we know that bad things happen around the world. Bad things happen in the United States of America. But when I hear about a soccer coach that has been around children for the length of time that this individual has, and we hear about just some basic details about what was found on his phone, it sends chills down your spine. What's the reaction been in Franklin?
Oh, definitely disgust. Franklin is a pretty close community. I mean, I've bumped into Gabrielle Hansen several times, just in the grocery store type of situation where we know each other. I haven't even been here that long. Next month's a year. And I can tell you pretty much where the movers and shakers are. And then when you hear of a story like this, 20 years, they haven't told us yet how long he was a soccer coach. But to be in the country 20 years illegally, when we front and center all the headlines about illegal immigration at the border, the crisis, this, and this is what we're talking about, right? Don't let illegals in because you don't know who they are and they could do something terrible like this. They haven't told us what drugs were allegedly used. the kids, 9 to 14 years old, they haven't come forward. They've identified 2 off the photos. By the way, note to self, if you're doing bad things, don't leave your phone in a restaurant without a password. These restaurateurs opened it up and were able to see what he did, and now they all have to do is go look at his soccer teams and say, there's one, there's one, there's one. But why did they stay quiet for so long? So we don't know. It's a terrible story. It reminds me a little bit about Covington. There were some problems there at that school for quite a while, but we didn't know. They always say, if you see something, say something. There were just a lot of signs, especially the idea that this guy had a job. Soccer coaches are usually paid for by the municipality. How did they not know that he was illegal? Did he have a fake ID? I'd expect that answer, but I haven't heard yet. It goes on, and it's a terrible story. $525,000 bond he's being held on, which is only a third of what's happening to the guy in Memphis. So, yeah, the long story short is Franklin is rocked. It's never good to have this. There's 9 to 10 kids, ages 9 to 17, that are going to be ruined, traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
And, I hope he goes away for a long, long time. But if he ends up getting deported, we may never hear about it again.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's an aspect of this story, and I don't think that justice, in my mind, would allow deportation proceedings before we get this guy locked up on some of the charges that are surely coming against him. And almost in a way, I was speaking at the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition monthly event at the Williamson County Public Library last night. And the news broke that he was, in fact, an illegal alien. And I said, well, obviously that brings up another component to this story and another reason that people like yourself and myself would suggest, even demand, that we get a handle on our southern border. But I reminded the listeners in the audience there, and we've talked about it today, that I don't want to get lost in the idea that, this was an illegal alien, it wasn't an American, so that's something that other people from other countries do. It is a problem here in America with certain aspects of the American population. Now, obviously, this guy never should have been here because we should have a shutdown on our border, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, that brings up some questions about what the vetting process for someone like a soccer coach would be in a community like Franklin. But I don't want it to get lost that this is not just a problem with other countries that come here and bring their problems with them. We have child trafficking, child pornography, and sex trafficking. It is a huge issue in America that is going underreported by the mainstream media. Would you agree?
I would, but, I'm to the point now where it's a global problem. I've had several guests on, even I think Aaron Spradlin, who you were just with, he was on, and he does this for a living. This is a 95 county, this is a every country on earth problem. It's becoming the largest industry next to drugs on earth. And so I don't care if this guy you hear illegal from Honduras or Mexico or Canada or Sweden or whatever. If you rape a child, that's a hate crime right there. You were talking about hate crimes a little earlier after Kermit the Frog. I would be more inclined to say, who cares where he's from? Let's try him with American justice, doing something illegal. It should be everywhere. And what really bugs me about this whole story is in some Tennessee groups on the left, mostly, they like to point out he's not a drag queen because they accuse those on the right of painting drag queens as harmful to children, and that somehow proves drag is all pure and clean for all ages like Disney used to be. But that's just totally awful because this guy ruined a lot of lives, allegedly, and never should have been here so each one was a preventable crime had he not been here for being here illegal. So kind of wraps a couple things into one, but I don't care if he's an illegal immigrant. He committed a heinous crime against a human being, children, minors, innocent. Used to hang around schools to try to recruit them to be on the soccer team, kind of like the guy would with, the van and the candy. So just a terrible, terrible abuse of innocent children in a town like Franklin that's probably more trusting than, say, Detroit. I don't know. But he is allegedly going to go down for committing heinous acts against children. That should be a crime everywhere.
Absolutely. Amen. I think there's a lot of uniformity in our belief that this guy needs to go away for a long, long time, rest of his life. I mean, frankly, it brought up a subject matter about whether or not a truly appropriate penalty for the most heinous of these types of sexual crimes against children would not be punishable by death. Another subject for another day, but there's a lot of uniformity about what to do with this guy. Not so much with this Columbia story, and I'm interested if it's caught your attention and what your thoughts are on it. Steve Abramowitz with us from Mill Creek View, Tennessee podcast. So we've got, I think everyone agrees that these fires are gross. They're disgusting. Anybody with that belief system in their head, they're gross. They're disgusting. They've got some sort of inferiority complex. I mean, we all agree on that. But for some reason, it makes me pause, Steve, when authorities start talking about issuing hate crime charges against someone, and I'm not sure that the language of this flyer rises to that level. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, going way back before it was political, I always said that the idea of a hate crime is the same thing as saying social justice. There is such thing as justice. There's such thing as biblical justice. There's no such thing as social justice because that just means society created it. Well, yeah, that's what all laws and all words are, created by society. So a hate crime is just a crime by another name. Now, if you murder somebody and you hated them, did you commit worse of a murder than the murder itself? I don't think so. But here's where my cynical journalism skills sort of spider tingle. I don't believe the story. I could be wrong. I'm willing to say I'm wrong. I'm not a soothsayer. But I don't think they slapped a KKK flyer that said all the right things on a dude's what do you call it? A
food truck.
Food truck. He happens to be a white gentleman. They say, well, maybe because we serviced a few black churches in the neighborhood. Maybe. But you see the image of this guy. He's a white dude. He's wearing basketball shorts. He kind of runs away. He's driving some kind of white, decent car. I don't know if it's a Nissan or what. They should be able to find him pretty quickly, although they couldn't find the J6 pipe bomber, and that's another story. But my point is, the flyer says the Klan's on the rise. In 2015, the Southern Poverty Law Center, back when they said that they were actually, doing good work, they've changed quite a bit. They said that there was between 5,000 and 8,000 people identified as Klan. In 2017, 3,000 is what the ADL said, who's also become a weaponized organization. In June of 2017, the ADL said there were 3 groups in Tennessee, 5 in Mississippi, 4 in Alabama. Every other state had way less than maybe 2 or 1 or none. If it's such a problem, the FBI has to look for very few people compared to, say, the 70,000 Moms for Liberty across America, 165 chapters, 33 states, that they are all over. So I'm questioning if this is even an issue or if they're just trying to say, look at how racist Tennessee is again, because if you remember, the same day Governor Lee signed those 2 pieces of legislation, the drag show and banning gender-affirming care, which is really genital mutilation for minors. There was that Nazi sign hung down around Vanderbilt. They never found those folks. So very sketchy, and I just don't believe in my heart that Tennessee is littered with Nazis and KKK members. It could be wrong.
And I'm holding off speculative judgment, but I'm right where you are, Steve. I see all the hallmarks of somewhat of a false flag operation going on. Yeah, and we'll find out.
Civil rights intimidation. Civil rights intimidation with what? Words on a flyer that they glued to a truck? I don't think so.
No, and I think even if these individuals turn out to be, racist in their heart and they are members of the Klan, I still don't know that the language on this flyer rises to the level. I mean, I have an issue with hate crimes altogether because a crime is a crime and it should be adjudicated in a court of law. And if you violated someone's rights, then you need to pay the punishment for that. And if you threaten someone in terroristic fashion, there's a crime for that. I mean, if you're harassing someone, there's a crime for that. If you are littering, there's a crime for that. But this kind of hate crime stuff, it makes me pause. I had a report earlier that one of the individuals had been arrested, and I'm gonna put a hold on that because I'm not seeing any corroboration on it. So I just want to let the audience know that I looked over the course of the last 30 minutes for corroboration. I haven't found it yet, but maybe that's the case. But they're going to get them. I mean, one way or the other. You got too much video, and that's not a very big place. You mentioned the Memphis case where an esteemed doctor was murdered. Are you following this one closely, and what do you make of this? This seems like there's a lot more to be discovered about the nature of the case, but it seems that someone entered the facility and killed the man and now has been apprehended. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a terrible story. I am following it. Reportedly, a patient of the Campbell Clinic Orthopedics had been threatening one of the staffers for a week before he actually fatally shot Dr. Benjamin Mock, who was targeted, it says in the news. The New York Post, ironically enough, had called Dr. Mock one of Memphis Magazine's 2023 top doctors list. But what I found interesting, and here I go with my spidey senses again, he also worked as an orthopedic surgeon at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. That's that Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare where they said gender-affirming procedures were placed on pause back in December of 2022, not that long ago. Its president, Michael Wiggins, he stepped down in March to become president of Dell Children's Medical Center in Austin, Texas, where just on May 5th, the AG of Texas, Ken Paxton, is probing Austin Children's Hospital following video of social worker discussing transition-related care. So they're still doing it, even though Texas said not to do it. So I don't know if this guy had that kind of issue, but, you know, orthopedics is bone and joint pain and stuff, and so sure, he could be off his meds. He did call the police quite a few times. He was well known to the police. He had been diagnosed as schizophrenic, and he had been off his meds before. So it is possible it's just some kind of crazy thing, but if there is a connection to that doctor being targeted, quote unquote, as the news said, there may be something to Dr. Benjamin Mock that we need to know to figure out. This is where you and I got into the big thing about why won't they tell us what happened to the patient in at Covenant High School? Right? We had to fill a vacuum with speculation because they don't tell us. They don't tell us about too many things. They won't tell us whose cocaine it was in the White House. They won't tell us, any of the news.
A lot
that
of
would
government
make us,
secrets. Yeah, a lot of good. Steve, I hate to do it, but I've got to cut it short. We've got to get to a break. But you know how much I love the Mill Creek View. I love what you're doing down in Franklin. You keep us informed with what's going on there, but you also broaden it out to statewide news and national and international stuff. I encourage people to go to mcview.us, and I especially encourage you to go to the podcast page and look for episode 83. It's really the best one you've ever done, Steve.
The best one, says Pamela Furr, yes.
Well spoken. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. This is Steve Brownwood's Mill Creek View. Back in a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Man, oh man, it's coming, it's coming. Just about 3 weeks away. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is coming to Nashville. Have you gotten your tickets yet? What are you waiting on if you've not gotten your tickets yet? It's the party of the year. Grab those tickets before they're gone. You can get one-day tickets or three-day premium hospitality. The choice is yours. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is the IndyCar event racing through the streets of downtown Nashville. I am so excited because I missed it last year, and I missed it the year before that because, well, I wasn't here the year before that, but I'm here this year, and I'm ready for it. Fan favorite returns with the high-flying stadium super trucks. You got Saturday night racing, and, of course, racing the streets of Nashville by Nissan Stadium, over the Korean War Veterans Memorial Bridge into downtown Nashville. It's going to be hot. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Get amped at MusicCityGP.com and get your tickets. MusicCityGP.com.
It's 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 91 degrees and got a chance of thunderstorms today, mainly after 3 o'clock, and got a low chance for severity, but still there. Complete weather forecast about 2 minutes away. Right now in Tennessee, News 2 reports that Clark Austin Daniel has now been charged in the December death of a Murray County deputy that happened during a crash. The deputy, Brad Miller, was working traffic detail in a work zone when a Chevy Tahoe hit him from behind. One nearby police officer tried to administer CPR, but Miller didn't make it. Daniel was released on a $50,000 bond and has a court date set for August 3rd. And staying here in Middle Tennessee, another rape case that involves a cell phone.
Murfreesboro police are trying to identify several women they say were raped while they were unconscious or asleep. Detectives say they found many videos and photos on a suspected rapist's cell phone. 38-year-old Emmanuel Webb is already in jail for a rape charge last year, but detectives say this new evidence on his phone indicates there are victims who may not even know they're victims because they were unconscious or asleep when it happened. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
In the nation's capital, the U.S. Secret Service has ended its investigation into how a bag of cocaine ended up in the West Wing of the White House. Faith Abube has details.
The U.S. Secret Service says it closed the investigation into the cocaine at the White House due to a lack of physical evidence. Despite performing fingerprint and DNA analysis, they say they couldn't narrow down the culprit because hundreds of people have access to the area where the illegal drug was found, including tour groups. In a statement, the agency explained that there was no surveillance footage of the incident. Some congressional Republicans are calling this a failure of the Secret Service. One lawmaker even calling for someone to be fired.
And data is in from Amazon Prime Day, and all online shopping consumers spent around $13 billion over the 2 days, according to new data. Alex Stone.
It wasn't only Amazon. Its Prime Days prompted many other big retailers to offer sales. Adobe Analytics says on Wednesday, sales were driven by appliances, housekeeping supplies, electronics, and clothing. Interestingly, curbside pickup where offered accounted for 20% of online orders, showing the staying power that consumers like driving up, having the items retrieved for them and brought to their car. Smartphones accounted for 45% of online sales compared to 42% last year.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is just after 2 o'clock, 2:06, and a good afternoon. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm so pleased you joined us today. We're here till 3 o'clock, the drive with Brian Wilson after that, getting you home in the proper fashion. It is Thursday, July 13. Hope you're doing well. Hot outside, and it's summertime. What would you expect? Lots going on, man. I mean, we barely brushed the surface on the Cocaine Joe White House story. We've got this child rapist in Franklin that we have updates on. We had the Ray testimony from yesterday. We discussed a little bit of that. The FDA has now approved a birth control pill to be sold over the counter, and which is all well and good. It's a 50-year-old product, and it's my understanding that it is well established in that in the pharmaceutical industry. What I have a problem with is the fact that they're not offering age restrictions on this, and children, anybody can go in and buy this product. Ray Epps is simultaneously saying that he's going to be charged with insurrection for the January 6th escapades that he was a part of, and at the same time he's suing Fox News for defaming him in some fashion. And I've got a wonderful story about CNN sticking their foot in it with regard to Dylan Mulvaney. That's coming up a little bit later on.
You're a lying dog-faced pony show.
Oh, and speaking of Joe Biden says that Vladimir Putin's already lost the war. So why are we sending them cluster munitions if the war is over, Joe?
Where am I? What's going to happen to me?
Yeah, you don't know. You know what? I know where this guy is, and I know what he's all about. His name is Representative Scott. Well, his name's not Representative. His name's Scott Sabicki. He is a representative from Murray County, and he joins us in studio to give us the latest on special sessions and a lot of other things going on. Hadn't seen you in a while. How you doing?
No, I've been busy trying to get hay up.
Yeah? How's that going?
So far, so good.
Must be going well. I told you to call me if you need any help.
Well, I've got two big boys to help out.
That's true. I've met at least one of them. I know. They're probably far better help than me. Well, I hope the summertime's going well. I wish we could say that you'll have a nice respite from being at the Capitol for the foreseeable future, but I don't believe that's the case. You've spoken with the governor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think his office is reaching out to a variety of representatives just to get where they are on the concept of a special session. I've asked the question to a number of people. I may have asked it to you. I'll do it again. What percentage do you put on there being a special session in August?
100. It's going to happen.
He is going to call the session.
And it's his right to call that through the executive branch. And the General Assembly will answer the call like we are supposed to do. I think the big question is what topics are we going to take up and what topics are we not going to take up? And I think that's going to be the big play that we work forward going with. The governor's having meetings with legislators. He's not being coy about that. He's letting everybody know that. We're having discussions about different topics, ERPOs, red flag laws, making sure your guns are put in a safe place, mental health facilities, looking at the juvenile justice system, on repeat offenders in the juvenile justice system, especially with guns, and maybe putting some type of legislation in place that transitions them into adult court to try to put this problem we have, Matt. We have a big problem right now of the gangs are recruiting these young kids for initiation purposes to go and break into cars to steal guns.
Mm-hmm.
And they know they're juveniles. They know they're going to be adjudicated in the system. Chances are they're going to just rack up a couple, 3 or 4 of these crimes, and then when they turn 19, their records expunged, and they are no longer they have all their rights reinstated. So we've got to figure out how we can do that. The question is, can it wait until January, or does it have to be done right now?
Well, and I had conversations with the governor's office, and I think they're doing this a good bit, not just with the legislature, but also with media members and whatnot, attempting to get their position out on this. And they indicate to me that they're an open book, that they want to bring the legislature together to talk this out and to figure out where we are. And I'm wondering the same thing as you. Well, then if that's the case, could we not do that without a special session and then figure out what needs to be handled and wait until January to take care of it?
Well, that's going to be the big debate. I think the governor is trying to figure out with his call, because it is very specific. So anything outside the call, you can't discuss, you can't take up. And so trying to make sure that he makes a call that's narrow enough that doesn't get us off in the weeds, but broad enough to address the issues that the General Assembly is looking after, such as, a bill that I'll be running. If we call a special session, I'll be running a bill to build more mental health facilities across the state of Tennessee to provide more avenues for people to gain access to the professionals that can help them get their lives back in order. The question is, where does that debate stop? And do we have the will to make sure that we don't do something that infringes on the rights of people here to say no to?
Do you know what a special session would cost?
Roughly, this is my fifth one.
Right.
They're about $250,000.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it was solely a special session regarding what is commonly referred to as red flag laws,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it's a waste of $250,000.
I would say it's a no. It's over.
But I understand the governor's desire to explore if there are loopholes or gaps within the law that we could work on that is supported not only by the people but by the legislature. And I get that, but I don't understand. I suppose I understand in the immediate aftermath of Covenant School why there would be a sense of urgency about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now that we've discussed it and calmed ourselves a little bit, and particularly considering that as it regards directly to Covenant School, that you in the legislature do not have all of the information as of yet.
Well, that's correct. And I think you bring up a great point. There was an initial reaction to what happened at Covenant. And the General Assembly, we took great steps to secure our schools. SROs in every school, hardened facilities with cameras, with locks, the bullet-resistant tape on the glass, right? Working with with the Tennessee Highway Patrol to make random visits to the schools, right? Asking law enforcement to make random visits, not only to public, but the private schools, just to make sure we have a greater presence there, right? I think we've taken some pretty much nation-leading steps to make sure that our children are in a safer environment. I think there's more things to come, if not at this special session, but in the General Assembly in January. I think you're going to see a greater discussion on teacher carry. Teachers go through all the necessary training, all the background checks, all the psychological evaluations, get permission from their sheriff and their superintendent to be able to carry and understand the nuances and the pitfalls to carrying and the responsibility that is. I think it provides another layer of expertise. But we haven't even talked about our colleges and universities right now.
Right.
They're wide open.
Right.
They're wide open.
So in your conversations with the governor's office or with the governor himself, do you get the sense that, and I'm not saying they're doing it solely for this reason, but I feel like, and I could be reading it wrong, that they want to present to the mothers and the fathers that have school children getting back into class as summer becomes fall, hey, we're taking some action here. You're seeing some actual things going on with regard to a special session. I think that's part of the reason, I'm speculating a little bit, I think it's part of the reason why the special session is 100%, as opposed to wondering if we could not figure all of this out during the fall and wait until January to start initiating some of these suggestions.
That's a tough question right there. I think the governor, the reason why he's having discussions with the General Assembly is weighing our temperature. How willing are we to start to have conversations about X, Y, or Z? And I think if you start talking about addressing mental health, about reporting about mental health, the tick system about when you go to get your gun and they run the background check on there, getting real-time data in there. If something happens to you in West Tennessee, how quickly is that put into the system that you live in Nashville, right?
Mm-hmm.
How quickly is that into the system for ticks to say, oh, no, Matt can't get a gun because he was found in a felony in West Tennessee? Or what if you're found a felony outside the state of Tennessee? How do we integrate all that information?
Right.
And I think that's the problem you have is getting the whole system. And we talked about this and I wasn't a big fan of this with the Homeland Security and the Patriot Act, right? Trying to get all these different entities communicating to each other is a very difficult task, especially when you get into the general sessions judges and the local clerks and stuff who are elected by the locals. They're not governed by us. They're elected by the locals, and their response is, well, I hear what you're saying in Nashville, but I have a responsibility to the people who elect me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's trying to bring the court system together. And like as you know, this is not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is education. But it's as you start to hear these arguments and these debates, it really becomes fascinating how do you make everybody communicate when they're all elected officials.
Right.
And they all have their own little feet.
And they don't answer to you. They
don't
answer to the voters.
Don't answer to me.
You know, you bring up your area of expertise, and that would be education.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about reading and reading comprehension for a moment, and then I want to move on to math. Do you feel like, I mean, there was a lot of concern when the scores came out. There were a lot of concerned parents when, especially those parents who maybe did not realize that they had an issue going on. The scores indicated that there was an issue going on. A lot of ways to remedy that without having to retain a child.
Correct.
Do you feel like now that it's shaken out that some of the parents could kind of understand the problem? I mean, do you feel like that's calming down a little bit, the reaction to it?
Absolutely. I've toured 9 different districts, urban, rural, and suburban districts, and went there during summer school. And let me tell you, the work that the teachers are doing in summer school is moving the needle on these kids.
Mm-hmm.
When we got the TCAP data to come back, our below category, which is our kids that are the furthest behind, is the lowest it's been in over a decade. So we're transitioning kids into that approaching category, which has grown, but what's also grown is the kids that are on track. And right now in the state of Tennessee, with our latest TCAP numbers, after everything has shaken itself out, we sit at a 40% literacy rate. Is 40% acceptable? No, it's not. But 2 years ago, Matt, we were at 29.
That's a big move.
So we are on the fast track. And the thing that has me really excited about reading is that next year, this is the second year of implementation. These second graders who are now third graders, what are they going to do when they take the TCAP?
And I would say that too, that you're seeing an 11% improvement rate in the midst of COVID. And I know many of us consider COVID to be far in the rear view, but for these kids, they're still catching up. They're
real.
still behind.
Now, the kindergarten group who did not go through COVID, now we passed a bill that gives summer school and tutoring options to those kids. What are they going to look like when they hit third grade, when they had the opportunity for summer school and tutoring for 3 years? We could be sitting, and I'm hoping, I'm praying that our teachers continue to do the work that they've done, that when we take our TCAP this coming May, Matt, what if we're at 45, 46%? That's 16% in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's unprecedented in the country. We could be sitting there talking about in a year when I come back to talk to you after TCAP, we could be talking about Tennessee is in the top 15 in the country.
You know, while a lot of people were, frustrated, and you heard a lot of, I don't want to say moaning, that's the word that came to mind, but there was a lot of consternation about the number of students that had to take, some summer school classes, had to retake the test. You reminded us, and I agreed, that, look, from where we were to where we are, this is good. This is improvement.
It's working.
We're getting to the right place. Math?
Well,
not so much.
No, you're going to see probably this year, I've already talked to some of the chairmen, talked to the Department of Education. We'll be working on a math bill, similar to what we had with literacy and English language arts. We're going to be working on a math bill that we're going to bring in January that kind of puts the supports in place. I can tell you this, it's focus, it's time, and resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to put the same kind of focus on math as we did with English language arts. We need to spend the same amount of time, and we need to do and appropriate the resources. Our teachers need to have professional development that is meaningful to them, that they can learn and help accentuate their ability to teach mathematics, especially in early education. We need to make sure that we give them the time to do that in the classroom, and we need to continue to focus resources on those that may happen. And then we got to make sure the colleges and universities that are preparing teachers are all simultaneously on board with preparing those teachers to hit the classroom too. And then keep raising pay.
And keep raising pay.
Keep raising pay.
Well, I mean, you got to pay the teachers to retain the good ones, and that's a good thing. Let's take a short time out. I want to ask you a couple of unrelated issues to education. One, in your neck of the woods down there in Murray County, your thoughts on what's going on down there with these flyers that are popping up in certain locations. We'll do that with Representative Scott Spickey in just a moment. 2:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We cleared the Mill Creek, so we should be good. You ever played pickleball, Scott?
No, I never have.
Mandis and I are going to be playing pickleball.
Yeah, I hear this. I challenge.
It's going to be fun.
You should have to play pickleball with an eye patch on.
The Secret Service, heavy on the secret, light on the surface. New information on the disgraced former Franklin soccer coach and birth control pill approved for over-the-counter distribution. Those stories and more coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yes, right after those stories. Oh.
Songs about rainbows. What's on the other side?
I'm telling you, I do a dynamite Kermit the Frog. Dynamite Kermit the Frog.
When I was looking for the video, I found a
Kermit
newer
the
one
Frog?
where Kermit was playing banjo with Steve Martin.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And you sound more like Kermit than the guy who does Kermit now.
Well, yeah, Jim. It was Jim Henson.
Yeah.
I mean, Kermit was kind of his alter ego, they say. And
but the guy they have doing it now, it's like,
for a
come
while
on,
it was
give
Jim
it up.
Henson Jr., and I don't know who it is now. But if you've never watched the original Muppet movie, I bet Mac Morey's never seen the original.
Of course
Muppet
I have.
movie. With Doc Hopper.
Yeah. It's Kermit.
He went. That's a
Kermit the
He's
Frog.
making
it's
it
an
up.
absolute failure.
Bell has to be Fozzie Bear.
Animal. I'm Animal.
Well, he might be Animal. That's true. That's true. Sabicki is that. I don't know what that guy's called. The big thing in the background that's always shaking.
Yeah.
That's you, Scott Sabicki. I was doing my Kermit the Frog impersonation earlier, and it's a dynamite. Kermit the Frog.
I heard.
I'm sorry. Yeah. You forgive me.
I'm always looking for a callback.
Jim Henson's safe.
Yes, there's no question. Do you know, by the way, I don't mean to get off on this, but
Squirrel.
Big Bird, you know how they did Big
Squirrel.
Bird? Like he did it like this, where the head where Big Bird talked was his arm. And one arm worked, and then that arm was attached by a string or pulley system to the other arm. And fascinating. Anyway,
we digress.
We digress. Murray County. I mean, this is awful. And best case scenario, you got a couple of, skulls of mush that think they're being funny and they aren't. Don't understand the serious nature of what the Klan used to be in this country and how they used to terrorize people in this country. It's no doubt a serious situation, and I'm certain that you've talked to constituents about it. What are they saying down there?
Well, one of the things that I want to let everybody know is there is no place in this for Tennessee. Nothing. This does not belong anywhere in our country for that matter. But, with the history that we've had down in southern middle Tennessee with the Ku Klux Klan and stuff, we have to be very careful about this. And these people are morons, like you said. I am sure that our sheriff down there and the sheriff of Columbia will get to the bottom of this very quickly. There are some criminal charges, criminal trespass, things like that you could put on them. But it's making sure that people realize that this is not who we are. Not in Murray County, but this is not who we are anymore as Americans.
Right.
We all believe that everybody has the same rights, same legal system, unless you're Biden, and you are able to live your life under the protections afforded by the Constitution, no matter your creed, your race, your color, it doesn't matter. And in this day and age, for an individual to believe that this would be a good thing, one could argue is the reason why we have to build more mental health facilities.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of things going on in the heads of these individuals. And that's why I say best case scenario, these are skulls of mush who are idiots who don't understand the full scope of the ramifications of their actions.
And our community has rallied together, supporting one another, right? As we should, right? It doesn't matter where you come from, your color of skin. It doesn't matter. Right? We're all Americans. We all live under the same flag, the same Constitution, and we will live our lives accordingly.
I think the rest of the story is yet to be told on it in terms of who the actual perpetrators are and, the full and throated investigation. I'm already hearing things about hate crime charges. I mean, is that premature?
Well, I think you got to make sure you send a message that this is not going to be tolerated anywhere. You just can't do this stuff. Now, I understand that the First Amendment, you got to be very careful. You got to be very careful because it's a slippery slope, right?
Right.
But when you charge people with hate crimes, you got to make really sure that this is rose to the level of a hate crime. Criminal trespass, absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt. Charged with criminal trespass, harassment, littering, whatever.
Right.
I mean, whatever you want to throw at these idiots to make sure, as you say, that you send a message to any other idiots that might be out there, I'm fine with. I just worry about how some of this can be used down the road when we on talk radio discuss very sensitive subjects and, some protected class member gets offended listening on the other end of the radio, and suddenly Matt Murphy's up on hate crimes. You know what I mean?
That's correct. And so I believe that law enforcement will be very, very careful. I believe our district attorney down there will be very careful, and they'll make sure that the level of punishment meets the level of the crime.
We've well discussed the illegal alien problem that we have in the United States of America and here in Tennessee. And so I understand that that's a component to the case I'm about to bring up. What can the General Assembly do, if anything, to help protect the people of Tennessee against perpetrators and predators like this soccer coach and the accusations that have been made against him? Is there anything?
Well, I mean, you talk about a huge breach of trust, right? I mean, these parents have entrusted this individual to coach. And I've been a football coach, a baseball coach most of my life. And when you are in charge of these young individuals, there's no place for this atrocity that has happened, especially being illegal, right? I think we have got to really, really lean on our federal elected officials that we cannot keep arguing this issue about protecting our border, because we just sent 100 of our Tennessee's finest, right, to the El Paso border.
All right.
They have a job to do, because that border in El Paso is the same as the border here in Franklin or in Murfreesboro. It's just, they're here.
Wide open.
And so we've got to make sure we get this under control. And I've had conversations with our congressmen and our senators, and they are well aware of the problem. It's just the political makeup of Washington right now is not allowing it to happen.
Well, and we have a problem in the United States of America with individuals, primarily men, preying sexually on our children. We already have that problem. We don't need to bring other countries' problems into this country to add to the problem that's already here.
That was one of the reasons why this year the General Assembly appropriated 100 more state troopers for interdiction in sex trafficking and drugs, right? If you don't think sex trafficking is a real thing, it's a real thing.
Absolutely.
And it's happening right here. It's not happening in inner city neighborhoods. It's happening all across Tennessee. And so we have got to get serious about this, and we have got to get very serious about the punishment for this, because when you look at the statistics of a child that is abducted and goes into those trades, the chances of getting them out of it or even finding them again is almost nil.
Yeah,
and so how do you there is no price tag on that, right? It's whatever we have to do to protect the children of Tennessee.
Real quick before you go, you have two placards there, and I don't want to get away from this because I think this is a good effort. This is good. We have talked in the past about, and you can see them on Talk TV right now. One says "baby in the bag," and the other says "where's baby?" These are two of those little. It's like one of those little things you hang on the rearview mirror of your car. Like if you're going to an event, they'll give you a little thing to hang your car. This is for mothers and fathers who want to make sure that they remember that baby's in the back seat. This was a problem that didn't seem to exist 25 years ago or so.
That's correct.
But it's a very serious matter. And I didn't fully understand. I did a deep dive on this about 4 or 5 years ago to try to understand the psychology of accidentally leaving your child. Because it's easy to say, how can you do that? But it happens. Mm-hmm. And we need to make every effort. And you've got these things. I like this.
So I had a conversation with Secretary Hargett about 2 years ago. Came from one of my constituents down in Murray County about this idea to help parents remember, right? A visual cue for parents to remember, hey, if you have a baby in the back seat, don't forget, where's baby, right? Check for your child. And number two, turn it around the other way, that if you're walking by a car and you see one of these hang tags up there that says, where, baby in the back seat, when you walk by, give it a peek. Right? Because we allow Good Samaritans in the state of Tennessee that if there's a baby in the backseat of a car, you have permission and authority to break the glass.
Yeah.
Because we're about making sure that a parent doesn't have to live with a tragic mistake that they may not even be aware of they did.
And I encourage people who are listening that are wondering questions that I've wondered in the past, and I'm sure you have too, Scott. Like, how in the world could that happen? Just do some research. It happens. And good, honest citizens of the United States of America have allowed this mistake to tragically ruin their lives because their baby dies and they're destroyed as a result. And rightly so. I mean, one can understand that. We're just trying to do everything we can to prevent it.
So we circulated these to people that are on WIC and welfare, TennCare, stuff like that, where you get your tags They're available
They're there.
And in your hospitals, we've asked the hospitals that when a new family is born, they get one to go home with.
Love it. Love it. Come back, see us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for stopping by. There's Representative Scott Spicky. To news we go on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.233, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 93 degrees and storms are likely tonight, but they aren't likely to be severe. 1 out of 5 chance right now looking at the severe weather outlook range. Full weather forecast coming up in about 2 minutes. Starting in the nation's capital, where the Secret Service says they don't know who's responsible for the cocaine found earlier this month at the White House. They've closed their investigation. Members of the House Oversight Committee got a closed-door briefing today. They say the Secret Service narrowed it down to 500 potential suspects made up of White House staff and visitors. Republican Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett finds it hard to believe.
Most ridiculous thing. I mean, it's indicative of this entire administration, though. I mean, nobody gets to the bottom of anything. They just laugh at Congress. They laugh at the American people and Secret Service.
And he went on to say that, quote, somebody should lose their job over this, end quote. Right now in the mid-state, according to Fox 17, the Franklin soccer coach that was accused of drugging and raping children on video for over 20 years tried to recover his evidence-filled cell phone that he left at the restaurant the next day. Employees told him they didn't have it while they took pictures of his license plate, and they contacted police. Officials identified Camila Hurtado Campos, and Campos admitted to knowing what the phone contained and that it was his. It was confirmed yesterday that Campos is not a legal United States citizen, and the Department of Homeland Security is involved in that case now. And the FDA has approved an over-the-counter birth control pill that can be sold without a prescription and with no age limitations. Ann Flaherty reports.
This is a progestin-only pill. It has fewer risks than those combination pills that include estrogen. But they say that this is going to start popping up in grocery stores and convenience stores. It's going to be everywhere that you can buy, say, ibuprofen or Tylenol.
And the pill is called O-Pill and is made by Perrigo, which says it won't start shipping it out until early next year. And that is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
I want to tell you about a very special something that is going on at the Glock store very soon. You've heard me talk about McGill's world-famous Glock store, just on Airlane Drive, right off of Elm Hill Pike, minutes away from the sound of my voice or anywhere in Middle Tennessee. Here's the deal, folks. On the 21st of this month, I will be broadcasting. Now, I'll be on from 3 until 7 o'clock. I'll be filling in for Brian that day, but I'll be out at the Glock store, and I'm waiting to see you. Now, starting on the 17th until this coming Friday, at 6 o'clock, normal business hours, you customers, you go over to the Glock store, and if you fashion yourself as somewhat of a sharp shooter, I'm going to lay down the Matt Murphy Challenge. I'm doing that on Monday. All right, so I did some training a couple of days ago. I'm about to lay down the Matt Murphy Challenge Monday afternoon, where I set the time for you to beat on the Matt Murphy Challenge course. It involves 14 shots, 7 targets, at a variety of ranges, how accurate you are, and how quick you are. Now, I moved my time. When I first started, the first practice I did was 30 seconds. And then I shaved that from 30 to 11 and a half seconds in a 1-hour session with Dan. That's how good. That's not how good I am, by the way. That's how good Dan is and the training team at the world-famous Glock store. So we'll tell you more about that as time permits, but just know you need to get by next week to lay down a time to win some fabulous prizes, and be sure to come by and see me on the 21st from 3 until 7 at the world-famous Glock store. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. For about 20 more minutes, we give the baton to Brian Wilson in the drive at that time on Super Talk. Hope you've enjoyed the show today. I've certainly enjoyed presenting it, and we've got much, much more to do in the last 20 minutes of this show. To include, I mean, this is one of the more delicious, just delicious stories that I've seen in a while, involving our good buddy Dylan Mulvaney. You guys know Dylan. Dylan's changed his, you see where Dylan changed up his hair color. You see that? He went platinum blonde on us. How about that? If you don't know who Dylan Mulvaney is, where you been?
He's still a dude.
He's still a dude, although, that could be a hate crime. Watch out now. But that's what I'm worried. My concern is not finding these dunderheads and prosecuting them where you can prosecute them. I'm talking about the Columbia deal. My concern is that one man's hate crime is another man's difference of opinion in a lot of ways. But the transgender community has presented for the last, 2 years at least, that they are, quote, under attack. They're under assault by America. No, they're not.
Transgenocide going on.
It's just stupid. And it's ridiculous. It's not. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't idiots out there. There are idiots everywhere. But be careful that you criminalize idiocracy when it is not a direct threat to other individuals. Now, direct threats, we have crimes for that, and they're not called hate crimes. They're called terroristic threats and acts, or criminal trespass, or littering, whatever, harassment. Hate crime. Hate crime. So what's to suggest if you do that sort of thing that someone listening to Matt Murphy, you don't like me, you're hate listening or whatever, and Murphy makes a joke about Dylan Mulvaney being a dude, which, by the way, Dylan Mulvaney is a guy. Once again, the Murphy standard. Remember the Murphy standard. You show me commitment, I show you commitment. You chop that thing off, and I'll call you she and her all day long and twice on Sundays. But until you do, I don't feel like I've gotten a commitment out of you. So why would you want a commitment out of me? And also, nobody cares that much about you to remember your pronouns. Or me. That said, I love it when liberals are hoisted by their own petard. I also love that phrase. Shakespearean, it is. A CNN correspondent, #NeverCNN, has been accused of misgendering during a segment on Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney and their former partnership. Bud Light has lost its hiney. I mean, it's bad. And as I've said in the past, this goes to show you when you're producing an inferior product and people are consuming your inferior product basically because it's cheap and easy and accomplishes the task that they want it to accomplish, and then you piss those people off, you are ripe for destruction. And it's what's happened to Bud Light. There are so many different alternatives to Bud Light that are just as crappy and cheap as Bud Light that we don't have to put up with your woke nonsense, Bud Light. Or Target, or name your woke agenda-driven company here. What was the latest? There was one the other day that they stepped out and people are calling on a boycott. What was it?
Ben & Jerry.
It's Ben & Jerry's. That's right. Well, I don't think we should boycott Ben & Jerry's. I just think we should give the land that their headquarters are located back to the Indian tribe that they stole it from. So a CNN correspondent is now being accused of misgendering during a segment on the Bud Light-Dylan Mulvaney partnership. While reporting on Bud Light's drop in sales following its partnership with a transgender influencer, CNN correspondent, and I'm certain woke reporter Ryan Young, referred to Mulvaney as a he, using the pronoun that corresponds to his biological sex. How dare you? Young, and I'm not going to give... I have it. I'm not going to play it. I'll quote it. I'm not playing it. I'm not giving CNN that level of publicity on my show. Young said, one bar was telling us basically they're not going to serve Bud Light because they don't like the way Dylan Mulvaney was treated after the controversy started. He, of course, is the transgender person they were going to sponsor and go along with. You see what's wrong in that reporting? I'll read it again. One bar was basically telling us they're not going to serve Bud Light because they don't like the way Dylan Mulvaney was treated after the whole controversy started. He, of course, he. How dare you? He went on to say, trans activists don't like how Bud Light didn't stand by him after all of this. He did it twice. Maybe, is this the transgenocide that we're talking about? You're getting mislabeled on your genders? R.E. Drennan, the LGBTQ news writer for the watchdog group Media Matters, blasted CNN for running the segment. And here it is. One of my favorite things in modern society, liberal on liberal violence, like this. Unbelievably bad segment. Fails to interrogate where the Bud Light boycott came from. Launders perspectives of people who think their grandchildren will be harmed by the knowledge that trans people exist. Misgenders Dylan Mulvaney. This segment could have run on Fox News. Ugh. Awesome. CNN, one Twitter user said, has had trans-positive pieces before, even on Dylan Mulvaney herself. It has run positive trans advocacy segments. Misgendering trans people in 2023 is not a faux pas, but intentional and bad politics, as well as blatantly unprofessional. Do better, CNN. When are these liberal... I mean, they are... Just sit back and watch the show. Because when you engage in this level of identity politics, and when you decide that every single human being is the ultimate arbiter of what is correct and incorrect, that every human being has a say in this, and that every human being gets to make their own series of demands. And if one liberal is not demanding enough, another liberal can demand more. And if liberal A doesn't acquiesce to the demands of liberal B, then you can destroy liberal A. I was saying last night to the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition group that the political left in 2023 operates under the same premises as radical Islam. They demand that you acquiesce to their position on any given issue, that you subjugate yourself, shut up about said issue, and don't talk about it out loud, or they will destroy you. Agreeing to disagree is not an option. Agreeing that you're going to have a difference of opinion on these matters is not an option. And oh, by the way, these same groups that are willing to destroy your career or destroy you as you sit and live and breathe in the United States of America, a country that was based on freedom, these same groups are here to tell you that men can have babies. And that Dylan Mulvaney, because Dylan Mulvaney wants to be a girl, is a girl. I'm on record. The best you're going to get out of me is that you're a trans woman. That's the best you can hope for. Well, saying trans is an indicator that he's less of the shut up. Just shut up. The best you get is trans woman or trans man. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Do you? Andrew is next from Shelbyville. Hey, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing great. You remember Saturday Night Live in the early 90s? They did a skit called It's Pat. You remember that?
I do remember It's Pat. Yes.
I want them to respin that and just try to put that on there now. The ambiguity of the sexuality was the whole premise of the skit. And I still remember the little song that they put to it. Do you remember that?
Oh gosh, I couldn't recite it if you put a gun to my head, but I do remember that there was a song. Can you sing it for us, Andrew?
Better yet, Bill could play it. I know he could pull it up in 5 seconds. I have no singing voice, and I would murder it, but it's hilarious. Let's just do that. Let's just play that on the repeat on the hours and just let the liberals have.
I mean, and the sad thing is, as funny as that bit was, and as SNL would never attempt it, nor could they get away with it because the transgender community would scream and howl. I mean, it's pathetic.
It's so funny how life imitates art.
There's no question. Yeah, if you don't remember, and thanks, Andrew, for the reminder. If you don't remember it, Pat, gosh, I forget who played Pat. Julia Sweeney? Julia Sweeney played Pat. That is correct. Pat was this androgynous person that would find themselves in circumstances, and the people around Pat would try to figure out if Pat was a man or a woman, and they never were really sure, and Pat would never really indicate one way or the other. And I can't remember the theme for Pat. For some reason, when I'm trying to think of the theme for Pat, all I'm getting is sexual harassment, panda. I know that's not right, but you remember sexual harassment panda on South Park?
Yes.
Don't touch that. Or no, don't say that. Don't touch there. Don't be naughty, says the silly bear. Sexual harassment panda. Nancy
I'm looking and I can't find I can't find the theme.
And then I'm thinking of Toonces, the driving cat. Anyway, Nancy, what do you have on your mind? Hello.
Hi. Something I have said for years about transgenders. I call them he, she, it.
Yes, that's a very dangerous phrase to use on radio. But I appreciate you. Well, I'm out of time, Nancy. I'm not suspending the call for that. But if somebody hears that quite wrong, you might think that you're cursing on the radio. And I don't want anybody to think that. It's 2:51. I didn't get, you know what? I failed the audience. Maybe Brian Wilson can pick it up. I'm not programming Brian's show, but I failed the audience because I forgot to play the Kamala stuff. Maybe tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. First Amendment Freestyle Friday tomorrow. Brian Wilson and the Drive's coming up next. I don't know if we have any more time, but if we do, I'll see you in a minute.
Okay.
Hello, friends. It's Matt Murphy, and I'm excited to tell you about PhD weight loss and my weight loss journey. I cannot be more excited about it all. PhD weight loss has taught me a few things. One, an individualized program is going to work better for people like me, people like you. I needed a bit of structure, and I needed to lose weight. I knew this. And so I consult with Rachel on a weekly basis. She's so supportive. She's so wonderful. And I'm losing the weight. Friends, 3 weeks in, 16 pounds. You heard it right. 16 pounds in 3 weeks. Thank you to PhD Weight Loss. I strongly encourage, if you've got some weight to lose, whether it's 16 or 116, get with the program and you'll begin to see results so quickly. The average guy loses 3 to 5 pounds per week. The average female, 2 to 3 pounds per week. And you can start your journey today. I love PhD Weight Loss, and I believe you will too. Go to myphdweightloss.com for more information. That's myphdweightloss.com and tell them Matt Murphy sent you.